Hello, my celestial disruptor. You ever notice how you could be silent, still, minding your own sacred evolution, and yet somehow you end up living rent-free in their head? You didn't speak, you didn't fight, you didn't even flinch, and yet they made you the main character in a movie you never auditioned for. That's how obsessed the outdated system is with a being like you. They can't stop watching you. They can't stop studying you. And the best part, you did absolutely nothing. But let's make one thing clear from the start. You're not just a person. You're a glitch in their algorithm. And that glitch, it threatens everything they were programmed to believe. They used to win with noise, overstimulation, distraction, manipulation. The old program was simple. Whoever shouts the loudest wins. Whoever conforms the fastest gets rewarded. But you didn't play. You didn't even log in, and that made you dangerous, because silence in a loud world is suspicious. Silence is resistance. Silence is power they can't quantify. So now they spiral, watching, probing, whispering behind locked screens, running simulations, trying to decode why they can't unsee you, unfeel you, or forget what your stillness made them feel. See, they thought they could reduce you to a glitch, but they didn't realize glitches expose the flaw in the entire system. They studied you like a virus study patient, observing your every quiet move, expecting you to fall, to collapse, to explain yourself. But you never did. You weren't supposed to rise without approval. You weren't supposed to shine without permission. You weren't supposed to become unignorable just by existing. But you did. Let me remind you why they fear you. Because you stopped chasing. You unplugged from their approval matrix. And when you stopped playing, their game lost its meaning. You were meant to be predictable, reactive, easily triggered. That's how the old world functions, through cycles, patterns, loops. But you started writing new code. While they recycled the same outdated moves, you were upgrading in silence. You remember those nights, don't you? When you stayed quiet, even though they tried to provoke you. When your name danced in group chats you were never part of. When people built entire narratives off your non-responses, you said nothing, and somehow became the main plot twist in their mental drama. They thought your stillness meant defeat. But they were wrong. It meant data was being processed. Code was being rewritten. It meant you were learning. While they gossiped, you studied. While they performed, you observed. While they competed, you calibrated. They thought you were frozen, but you were downloading the next version of yourself. Quietly, precisely, ruthlessly, and, let me say this clearly, they needed you more than you ever needed them, because you represented what they couldn't control. You were the one who walked away and never looked back. You were the update they didn't see coming. You don't beg, you don't chase, you don't explain, and that makes you terrifying. See, they were programmed by a system that needs constant validation, noise, chaos. But you became immune. You developed a psychological firewall. You don't just survive noise, you mute it. That's what makes you dangerous, because while they were scanning you for weakness, you were becoming signal in a world of static. They thought your power came from how loud you could get, but your silence, it echoed louder than their screams. You became the mirror, the one they couldn't manipulate, distract, or decode. You held up their reflection just by existing, and they couldn't look away. Remember, they tried to break you by pretending you didn't matter. But look who's still stuck in the loop. Look who still can't stop thinking about the person who did nothing, and yet became everything. Their tactics were simple. Create noise, create chaos, get a reaction. Repeat, but you did something radical. You disengaged, you unsubscribed, you deleted your account from their expectations, and suddenly, their entire simulation started glitching. Because when a system relies on your participation to survive, and you stop participating, it crashes. They never planned for your awakening. They thought you'd spend your life trying to prove your worth to people who've already decided to misunderstand you. But you didn't. You walked, you withdrew, you went inward, and they couldn't follow you there. That's when they panicked. That's when they realized you weren't just walking away, you were ascending. Let's talk about those moments. They underestimated you. The days they laughed in circles you were no longer part of. The silent treatments they gave you, thinking it was punishment. The smear campaigns they crafted, thinking they'd rewrite your story. But what they didn't realize is that while they were busy talking about you were becoming unrecognizable. Their version of you expired the moment you stopped explaining yourself. While they were using the same old playbook, you were burning it page by page, rewriting. Your reality in code they can't comprehend. They tried to categorize you, box you in, diagnose you, control the narrative, but you kept shape-shifting, not because you were hiding, but because you were evolving. You stopped attending the meetings you were never invited to. You stopped answering questions you never agreed to be asked. You stopped dancing for an audience that claps for your downfall. And in doing so, you broke their entire illusion. They see you now, not for who you were, but for who they fear you've become. And the more you remain unbothered, the more they obsess. Because now, they're trapped in a loop of their own making, refreshing your profile, replaying your silence, rewriting conversations that never happened. You became the center of a simulation they can't exit, all because you did nothing. And yet you evolved into something they never imagined, the glitch that became the system, the silence that rewrote the code, and the presence that made their performance irrelevant. And while they sit in circles speaking your name, you're already preparing for the next evolution, because this was only the beginning. You didn't ask for this spotlight, but when you refused to play their game, you became the game. When you stopped responding, you became the narrative. And when you walked away, you left a black hole in their system, pulling everything into your silence. You see, the old world taught them that being seen equaled being powerful. But you found power in the unseen, in the private, in the unposted, in the shadowy realms of evolution, where no validation exists, only transformation. That's why they watch you now. That's why your name still flickers in their algorithm, like a forgotten prophecy. You didn't just step back. You vanished. You became untraceable, unlabelable, unreachable by old frequencies, and nothing disturbs the insecure more than someone they can't access. You could walk into a room, say nothing, and still shift the entire energy, not because of what you say, but because of who you've become in silence. Let's talk about that version of you, the one forged in unseen hours, the one who outgrew the old software, the one who coded themselves in isolation, far away from the noise, the narratives, and the need to be liked. Because yes, they tried to make you small. They projected, they deflected, they redirected the spotlight onto themselves because your existence made them uncomfortable. But here's the paradox. The more you shrink your presence, the more they feel it. The less you reveal, the more they speculate. The more you disappear, the louder their obsession becomes. Because in their world, mystery is threat. In their fragile simulation, your refusal to conform equals rebellion, and rebellion equals danger. You never had to speak to offend them. Your peace was loud, your absence unforgivable. You weren't loud, but you were clear. You were clarity in a foggy world, stillness in a shaking room, and truth in a culture of performance. So now they scan every post, every silence, every absence, hoping for a sign. They want to know, are you watching? Do you know what we said? Did it hurt you? But you already evolved past that timeline. You've seen the glitch too many times, the forced smiles, the fake unity, the scripted friendships where everyone claps the loudest for those going nowhere. You no longer orbit their illusion. You built your own planet. And guess what? You didn't need to launch an announcement. You didn't need a comeback. You didn't need to prove anything. Because your growth is not a performance. It's a protocol. They still try to trigger the old version of you, unaware. That version no longer exists. They whisper your name like it's a secret spell, hoping it'll summon you back to the arena. But you're not in the arena. You own the arena. You outgrew the arena. Hell, you deconstructed the entire stadium and built a new game that they're not invited to. So why do they still talk about you? Because every time they try to forget you, they remember how unbothered you became. That's not just intimidating, that's revolutionary. In a world where everyone is addicted to being seen, your refusal to seek attention made you unforgettable. You didn't shout, you didn't expose, you just disconnected. You became a private revolution. And that's when the glitch turned into something bigger, a signal. Because here's what happens when someone like you evolves. Others start waking up. Others start muting the chaos. Others start questioning the program. And suddenly, what was once a glitch becomes a movement. You inspired people without trying, simply by not lowering your frequency to match the noise. They tried to trap you in loops, old arguments, past labels, unhealed projections. But you became loop-proof. You stopped feeding what no longer nourished you, and in doing so, you starved their control. That's why they invent new stories. That's why they retell old wounds, dressed in fresh distortions, because they don't just miss you. They miss controlling you. They miss knowing your every move. They miss manipulating your emotions. They miss the version of you that cared enough to respond. But now, you don't respond. You recalibrate, because you've realized some energies don't deserve closure. They deserve silence. Some circles don't need confrontation. They need exit. And some people don't need to be proven wrong. They need to watch you live right. You didn't abandon them. You chose yourself. And that choice, it created a ripple they're still drowning in. Because when one person chooses peace over drama, depth over attention, self-respect over approval, the whole matrix starts to destabilize. So they talk, they speculate, they pretend you're still the same, because accepting your evolution would mean accepting their stagnation. But you don't need to convince them, because their disbelief is just proof of your distance. You've traveled too far to explain your silence to people still addicted to noise. You became your own timeline, and timelines don't beg to be understood. They just move. So while they sit there trying to decode your silence, you're already 5 levels ahead, speaking a language they'll have to outgrow their ego to understand. And the irony? The more they mock you, the more they mirror you, the more they deny you, the more they recreate you, copying your stillness, your detachment, your aura, without even realizing it. You're not just rent-free in their minds. You're the furniture, the lighting, the architecture of their emotional space. You didn't ask to be their main character, but when you became the glitch that refused to be fixed, you rewrote the entire plot. And deep down, they know it. So keep building, keep disappearing from their narratives. Keep creating in silence, healing in silence, winning in silence. Because silence is no longer just survival for you. It's strategy, it's armor, it's art. And the most poetic part, you'll never need to announce your next chapter, because your energy will say it all, and they'll still be watching, still decoding, still obsessing over the glitch they couldn't predict. Let them misunderstand you. Let them twist your silence into arrogance. Let them label your distance as ego. Let them mistake your calm for weakness, because they don't know what it took to stand this still, to breathe this deep, to smile after drowning. Let them talk, because you stopped explaining the storm to those who only ever brought umbrellas to your fire. You stopped bleeding clarity for people committed to misunderstanding. They say you've changed. Good. Let them miss the version of you that tolerated disrespect, disguised as jokes, that apologized for boundaries, that shrank just to make others feel tall. Let them miss that version, because even you don't recognize them anymore. They whisper now. You walk different. You speak less. Your eyes hold fewer questions. But it's not distance, it's direction. They never noticed when you were breaking, but now that you're building, they act betrayed. Strange how your silence bothers them more than your cries ever did. Let them misunderstand, because you finally understand yourself. You're not cold, you're clear, you're not rude, you're reserved. There's a difference between disconnection and discernment. And baby, you've become fluent in both. Remember when you used to explain your heart to people who only listened to reply? When you screamed truths into echo chambers of validation seekers? No more. Now you know some people listen to feel right, others listen to feel you. And the former don't deserve front row seats to your becoming. You stopped oversharing with undercaring souls. You stopped handing over blueprints to people who only wanted to watch it fall. You stopped offering your time like a discount product in a clearance aisle. You are not clearance. You are custom built, unapologetically rare. Let them misunderstand that too. They said you disappeared, but you didn't vanish. You just went inward, and the loudest moves are made in silence. You weren't hiding. You were healing, threading your wounds with golden truth, learning that not all pain is punishment. Some of it is preparation. Let them think you've become unreachable, because your peace, it doesn't need company. It needs alignment. You've outgrown performance. You've retired from the circus of pleasing. Now you speak less, because your energy speaks louder. They wanted access without accountability, presence without presence, love without labor. But you stopped participating in relationships that feel like emotional algebra, solving for X when no one's even sure what Y they're fighting for. Let them call you heartless. They didn't see the nights you held yourself together when your chest felt like a glass jar filled with lightning. They didn't see you unlearn survival, peel back years of fake smiles, and stitch back a soul with nothing but solitude and hope. That's not heartless, that's heroic. You became the person they never thought you could be, not because you owed them proof, but because your future self was watching the whole time. You didn't change to be liked. You changed to be free. Let them misunderstand. Your peace, let them call it boring. Let them miss the chaos you once called love. Because what they call boring, you call safe, sacred, solid. The soft mornings, the slow coffee, the small intentional circle of people who don't drain. They don't get it, and they don't need to. You no longer chase, you attract. Not through force, but by flow. By the quiet confidence of knowing what you bring to the table is no longer up for negotiation. You are the table. They keep wondering what happened to the old you. The answer is simple. You outgrew the cage they built in their mind. The one where your wings were clipped, your light dimmed, your fire extinguished for comfort. You broke it, and now you soar in skies they can't even pronounce. Let them call you distant. Let them paint you cold. Let them misunderstand this new era. Because this era, this is the rebuild era. The watch me quietly win era. The alignment over attachment era. The no more begging for bare minimum era. Let them misunderstand all of it. Because they'll never understand what it feels like to finally be loyal to yourself. Let them think you've hardened. They don't see the softness you still keep safe inside. The version of you that still cries at movies, laughs at bad jokes, and holds space for people who've earned it. But now, that softness is protected, wrapped in armor built from every disappointment you survived. Let them misunderstand that too. Because those who really know you, they don't need proof. They feel it. They see the quiet fire behind your eyes. They notice how you listen, not to reply, but to understand. They see how your love isn't loud anymore, but it's real. You don't need to announce your growth. Your peace is your billboard. Your absence is your loudest protest. Your presence, your most sacred gift. And now you know not everyone deserves it. Let them sit in confusion. Let them scroll through your feed, trying to find hints of who you were. Let them screenshot your silence. Let them build stories out of shadows. Because here's the truth. You're not who you used to be. And that's the whole point. Growth is not always pretty. Sometimes it's lonely, quiet, unseen, but always worth it. So let them misunderstand. Let them speculate. Let them miss the you who dimmed your brilliance to fit their comfort. Because the version you've become, she doesn't beg. He doesn't shrink. They don't chase. You just glow, unapologetically, unmistakably, unforgettably. And when they finally realize what they lost, let them. But don't look back. You're not behind them anymore. You're beyond.